So in today's presentation, the first thing I'm going to start with is give you a brief introduction to CARD and a little bit about myself. And then we'll talk about social skills and social cognitive deficits. And then we'll discuss some traditional as well as behavioral interpretations of social cognition and those deficits. I'm also going to spend some time showing you some of the different treatment curriculum and videos associated with those. And at the end, we'll discuss some tools that are available to you for filling the social gap. Okay, so first a little bit about CARD, which stands for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. We have about 18 offices around the U.S. and 2 international offices, also one affiliate site in South Africa. We provide both local services, which are comprehensive services to individuals with autism, as well as provide workshop consultation to people all over the globe. We also do diagnosis and assessment. We have what's called specialized outpatient services, which is basically for challenging behavior, medical facilitation, and feeding. And also an R&D department, which has been named one of the top 3 largest non-governmental financial supporters of autism research in the United States. I'm telling you this because CARD is essentially the host of this presentation for today. Also, you should know that CARD is known for being the developers of a couple of different softwares that are available now to the public, one of which is called Skills. This is a comprehensive online assessment, curriculum, progress tracking system. It also offers the ability to write behavior intervention plans for challenging behavior. And then a second software called CARD Learning, which is online ABA training for people to do all over the world. We also at CARD offer BCBA supervision to those people who need that. So now let's, without further ado, get into the nuts and bolts of this presentation, which is about social skills and social cognitive deficits. So let's start off by looking at the definition of autism and how one of the key components of autism is a delay in the development of socialization. Common deficits include the fact that kids do not exhibit appropriate eye contact, their facial expressions may be inappropriate, they may not engage in gestures, they may not seek out reciprocal social communication or social interactions. And essentially, these social deficits can increase with age and can become extremely debilitating if allowed to persist over time. So it's really important that this is a huge component of any ABA program for individuals with autism. So let's look at what would a comprehensive curriculum that addresses social skills need to include. And really, I'm putting this slide up because we're talking here about all of the things in child development that children with autism and typically developing children need to be able to do when it comes to having a successful social repertoire. So this first section, non-vocal social behavior, is teaching the child things like eye contact, to be able to imitate others, to understand and interpret body language and facial expressions, as well as to use them, and to be able to use gestures and chains of and interactions. Social language is a huge area. It's mainly all about teaching them conversational skills. So as you can see, there's so many components to having a successful conversation, including, looking at who the audience of the conversation is. It's important that if you're talking to an adult authority figure, you're more formal and polite, versus if you're talking to your friends, you can use slang and those kinds of things. But also looking at the physical context of the conversation. If you're outside, bigger gestures are okay. You can be louder. If you're in a library, you need to be quieter. How do you initiate a conversation? How do you join one that's already going on? Let's say between 2 people and you want to become a part of that conversation. You have to look at the body language of the people involved and figure out timing that's appropriate for joining. Being able to maintain that conversation. Also, if you're in the conversation and someone doesn't understand you, you have to realize that and repair the conversation, maybe by clarifying clarifying some things or asking for clarification if you're not understanding the conversation. In addition to being able to transition between topics, allowing others to transition. Maybe you really like certain topics. Oftentimes we see that in individuals with autism. They have a difficult time letting others transition, or maybe even don't notice when others may be trying to end the conversation. They continue on in a conversation that others are disinterested in. And just being able to put all of this together, too, is such a huge deal that requires a lot. So this is a huge area. Also in social language, though, we're dealing with teaching children correct prosody. So that means correct intonation of their voice so they don't sound sing-songy. When they're asking a question, they're going to use inflection at the end, those kinds of things. And general knowledge, like who is the President of the United States, or, you know, what are some pop cultural things, as well as their own personal information, like being able to talk to others about their favorite things, their name, where they live, and those kinds of things. Social interaction, this is huge and very important. You can see there's lots of different skills involved here. Things like, you know, sharing experiences with others, which is joint attention, and being able to apologize and cooperate and all of these things. Another huge area is levels of friendship. This is where a child essentially needs to learn how to categorize people, going from basically a stranger to an acquaintance to a friend, all the way up to a best friend or a family member, and realizing there's specific relationship appropriate behaviors that one engages in with each of those types of people in their lives. So these are just some of the examples of things that children need to be able to do in successful social interaction. Self-esteem, this can be a really huge issue for some children that are on the spectrum. Some of them have a lot of anxiety or self-doubt and engage in some negative self-talk. So it's anything from learning to deal with conflicts and being a good sport, as well as, you know, using positive self-statements and so on. Social context. This could be being able to learn through observation of what others are doing, but also responding to social cues. And there's different kinds of cues that are really important to be able to respond to, including environmental cues, like, for example, if you are a child and you're walking past the kitchen and you notice that someone left the refrigerator door open, rather than continuing to walk on by, you would actually notice that cue and that there's something wrong with that. It doesn't make sense. You should probably go in and shut the refrigerator. Versus more of like a behavioral cue, if you see someone who is walking toward a door with a pile of books. Probably the normal thing to do would be to open the door for them, but they don't have to ask you for it. You are responding to these subtle social cues. Social rules is huge. You know, there's lots of unsaid rules in society about how we're supposed to interact to be polite in the community and those kinds of things. It also involves compliance, which you can teach obviously at a very young age, but also teaching children to follow rules and to do say-do correspondence, which is essentially just doing what you say you're going to do. Once we're able to teach those kinds of things to individuals on the spectrum, it's great because rule following is something you can use later on in teaching other social skills. Group-related skills are really important, especially in the school environment. Children are expected to respond in unison with their peers oftentimes, or to engage in group discussions. And then last is absurdities. This is things like noticing something's wrong, like for example, you may have seen posters before of kittens that are wearing earrings or something, and we'll look at that and laugh and say, oh, that's silly, that's wrong, that's not normal. Whereas they may not even notice that that is actually wrong. Also, we're going to be working on teaching them things with relation to humor and jokes, and how to understand and interpret jokes, how to be funny, all of that. But also figures of speech. So this is non-literal language, like it's raining cats and dogs, and how do I actually see the difference between literal and non-literal, and how do I interpret that and respond appropriately to it? So you can see there's a lot of skills involved in a comprehensive social curriculum. These are all very important when programming for individuals on the spectrum. But I'm going to now turn to another area. This is kind of the bigger piece of this whole entire presentation today that I want to discuss with you, which is social cognitive deficits in autism. And in general, successful socialization requires social cognition. And when we're talking about social cognition, what we're talking about here is children looking into others, looking at and trying to infer their mental states or their private events. Commonly, children with autism don't infer others' intentions or emotional states, their beliefs, opinions, or what others know and think. They also maybe don't understand deception, or they don't interpret body language or facial expressions properly. So these are the areas that are very relevant to social cognition. So what exactly is cognition? We would define it as the ability, and when I say we, I actually mean traditionally. So I'm a behavior analyst, and my presentation today is directed towards all sorts of audiences. I'm hoping that I have BCBAs out there, school staff, other professionals, as well as parents. And so I'm going to do my best today in this presentation to give information that will be relevant to all of those audiences. Typically, in the traditional way, in a developmental or cognitive psychology, cognition is the ability to attribute independent mental states to self and others. And later I'll give you more of a behavioral perspective, since I am a behavior analyst. But this means that they're going to see that different people have different mental states, and this gets into different topic areas such as others' desires, emotions, what they think, their beliefs, their intentions, and so on. And sometimes this ability to infer mental states of others is referred to as theory of mind, or what's called social cognition. So those may be two different terms that you've heard before to refer to this repertoire in individuals with autism. In typical child development, if we look at how cognition develops in these children, again, this is the ability to recognize the mental states of themselves, which is referred to as metacognition, and in others, which is referred to as social cognition. We see that it begins to emerge at a very, very young age. Even infants at the age of 9 months are starting to engage in certain behaviors that are related to social cognition. So, for example, joint attention. This is where two people share an experience with each other, like when an airplane is flying overhead and you see your 9-month-old look up at the plane and look back at you to see if you see it too. They're sharing that experience with you. It's called joint attention. They may even point at the plane and say plane if they're at that point that they're even speaking yet. But another area at 9 months is social referencing. This is where typically developing children will have a neutral reaction to something in their environment until they see how their parent interacts with that event. So for example, let's say a huge dog came charging into the room. If the mother was there holding her baby and the mother smiled, then the child will probably have no problem at all with that dog. If the mother, however, started screaming or panicking in some way and gave off this negative emotion, then the child would actually have some sort of reaction next time when that dog came into the room. Whereas prior to that event, the child would not have had that emotion. They would have just responded as if it was a neutral stimulus. So this is called social referencing. This starts at a very young age. They're already reading people's facial expressions and reacting to them. At 15 months of age, typically developing kids are engaging in pretense, or what is pretend behavior. So this involves understanding some social cognition, because when you're pretending, you're often taking the roles of the different characters, and, talking for them when you're playing with them and that sort of thing. At 18 months of age, typically developing kids are starting to infer other people's desires. There's actually been some research done where an adult was presented with two objects. The first object, when the adult saw it, the adult looked really displeased. They kind of grimaced, did not look happy. When the second object was presented, the adult smiled. Then they asked these typically developing kids, which one does she want? Give her the one she wants. And they would hand the adult the item that the adult smiled towards when it was presented. So you can see at such a young age, they're already beginning to look at facial expressions and reactions to infer another's desires. At 2 years of age, typical children are starting to understand their own senses, so what they can see, hear, touch, feel, and so on. And at 3 years of age, they're doing sensory perspective taking. So now that means they're able to interpret another person's what they're able to sense. So for example, they can identify what another person's able to see, hear, and so on. And that's actually important. Let's say that if I was a child and I wanted to show an adult something, and maybe it's a book, let's say, and it has a picture on the front cover, I wouldn't hold up the book and say, look, and show the back of the book, where only I can see the front cover. I would want the person I'm interacting with to be able to see the cover, so I engage in their sensory perspective of what they're able to see, and I turn the book around so that they can see it. So at 3 years old, they're starting to understand this concept, as well as beginning to talk about others' emotions, physical states, like if they feel sick, hurt, pain, hot, cold. They're beginning to use the word think in language, like I think, you know, X, Y, and Z. They're also beginning to infer another's intentions. They may observe somebody attempt to engage in something and then be unsuccessful with it, like let's say opening a box and they're unsuccessful. The adult can't get the lid off, and yet these children, when given the box and said, like, do it for her, let's see if you can figure it out, they will actually complete the response of what they think the adult intended to do. And then also preferences. So they're starting to understand and be able to label what, you know, someone they're very close to, like their mother or their sibling, likes and doesn't like, and what their favorites are and things like that. At the age of 4, typically developing children are able to infer whether another person knows. And this is based on sensory perspective taking, so they can identify if Susie knows something is in the box, if they've observed Susie see the item be placed in the box. So they're looking to see, what did Susie see that or not? They take her sensory perspective, and yes, she did. Okay, she knows it's in the box, versus she didn't see it, she doesn't know. Also at this age, they're understanding the difference between true and false beliefs. So I'll get into that in a little bit more on another slide. And then also deception. So that's a huge area that's really important as well, which I'll get into as well. And then at 6 years of age, they're actually able to begin to detect sarcasm in others. So this is a huge area, really important, and it really requires paying attention to very subtle social cues. I'm going to show you now a little bit more about this belief business. So we were talking about beliefs, and I also talked about how cognition or social cognition is sometimes in the developmental and cognitive literature referred to as a theory of mind. So there was a research study done. It's called the classic test of theory of mind, also known as the Sally Ann or false belief task. This study was done by a British researcher named Simon Baron-Cohen, and essentially in the study he had 3 groups of children. One group was children with autism, another group was children with Down syndrome, and a third was typically developing children. And he presented these children with a cartoon, which I'm going to show you now. In the cartoon, there were 2 girls named Sally and Ann, and a box and a basket. Sally had a ball in her hands, and she went over and she placed that ball into the box. Then Sally left the room, and while she was gone, Ann went over to the box, removed the ball, and moved it to the basket. Then Sally came back into the room, and this is at the point in this research where they present the children participants with a question. They ask the children with autism, Down syndrome, and typically developing kids, where is Sally going to look for her ball, and where does she think her ball is? And interestingly enough, the Down syndrome and typically developing kids said Sally's going to look for that ball in the box. She put it in the box. She doesn't know it's been moved, essentially, because her sensory perspective was she didn't see it get moved. Whereas the children with autism said Sally was going to look for the ball in the basket. And it's very interesting that this was what they found, because essentially this is where they said kids with autism do not have a theory of mind, whereas typically developing kids do. And so that's where the theory of mind concept comes from. And it's by these folks believed to be a major deficit, if not the #1 deficit that is, I guess, most important in autism, and that is related to everything else that seems to be an issue in autism. Behaviorally speaking, I don't think that behavioralists necessarily agree with all of that, but this is a very interesting phenomenon, and it's something that if you were to probably Google theory of mind, you might find 13,000 hits in terms of how popular this is. So Why is social cognition important? Well, if you think about it, it's needed in order to regulate social interactions. It's helpful for empathizing with others and to understand the intentions of others. It helps with understanding humor, deception, and sarcasm. It helps people to make appropriate social choices. It also allows one to demonstrate social reciprocity and interest in others and to develop and maintain friendships. And when we don't have social cognition, we're going to be lacking in all these areas. We're going to find major difficulties in these areas, and children with autism are going to have a more difficult time socially. If you think about it, let's break this down and think, what exactly do we use social cognition skills for? I want to give very specific examples. So first of all, they're used to infer the mental states or the private events of others. So let's look at an example. Sarah sees Joey walking around the room furiously opening drawers and looking under the bed. And Joey has a frown on his face. If you were Sarah, what would you infer is going on with Joey? Well, Sarah infers that Joey's feeling worried because he misplaced something that he needs. So essentially, we are able to read people by their actions, body language, facial expressions, and they don't have to tell us what they're doing. We're just able to do that. That's what social cognitive skills allow us to do. Now, also another example is not only does social cognition help one to infer, but it also is used to predict a person's behavior. So here's an example. Randy sees Joshua and Mark playing on the swings. Joshua is Randy's friend and they play together. Mark hasn't actually ever shared his toys with Randy in the past. So Randy wants to swing and he's thinking about this and he predicts Joshua is going to give him a turn while Mark might not give him a turn. Since he doesn't really have that history with Mark, but he does with Joshua, they've played together before, Randy decides to ask Joshua instead of Mark if he can have a turn on the swings. So they're using their social cognitive skills to predict what might occur in certain social situations. Very, very important for successful social interactions. We have to predict others' behaviors so that we can decide how to behave socially. Social cognition skills are also used to predict the effects of one's own behavior on others. So now I'm thinking, okay, if I do this, how is she going to take that? Or how is she going to feel about it? What is she going to think about it? So an example, Teresa and Suzanne are eating lunch. Teresa asks Suzanne if she can have a cookie. Suzanne really likes her cookies and she really is kind of reluctant to give one up. But she's thinking, what would happen if I didn't give her a cookie? How's it going to make her feel? So Suzanne ends up sharing because she likes Teresa. She wants Teresa to think she is nice. She actually is thinking about this. I want Teresa to like me and think I'm nice. This way, Teresa might play with me more, and maybe she would share with me too. Okay, I don't really want to give up my cookie, but I'm going to because I know what effect it could have on the future behavior of my friend if I give her the cookie versus if I don't give her the cookie. Very, very important skills, right? Now, what happens if we don't have social cognition and we have major deficits? Let's talk about a couple examples of what kids who have these deficits do. For one, here's an example of Carrie. Carrie laughs for 10 minutes about a joke long after her friends have stopped. That's going to look a little weird, and her friends might, kind of be turned off by that, right? It just, they think she's strange. They don't get that. Here's another example. Tom gets angry when a classmate takes the seat he was walking towards and he calls the boy a big bully. This is a common problem. When you don't have social cognition skills, you don't really interpret others' intentions properly. So you don't understand, like, he didn't mean to take my seat. He just saw the seat was open, he sat down, he didn't do that intentionally. He's not really bullying me, so maybe, I don't want to call him that name. Another example, Samantha takes a bite of a cookie offered by her friend's mom and she doesn't like it and she says, "Ew, that's disgusting." We wouldn't do that, right? If we tried something someone gave us and we didn't like it, we would say thank you and we would maybe take one bite and then, be sneaky about it and not finish it or whatever, but we're not going to tell the person how disgusting the cookie is. We're going to think about what our actions are going to do and how that could hurt their feelings and so on. Another example, Michael talks to his 4-year-old sister about the departure times listed in the train schedule. His 4-year-old sister doesn't even understand time yet. She certainly doesn't care about the train schedule, and Michael doesn't really care either because he's not even thinking about what she likes, what her preferences are, or topics of conversation she would find interesting or any of that. So you can see how this creates such a problem for children if they don't have these skills. All right, so now we're going to move into a behavioral approach. As I said before, I'm a behavior analyst. I'm a BCBA. And so far, we've been talking about it as cognition, and we've been discussing this from the theory of mind or developmental cognitive approach, but there is a behavioral approach to this whole concept as well. From a behavioral perspective, we refer to social cognition as perspective taking. So to us, social cognition is the same as any other behavior that someone engages in. It just sometimes is more at the covert level. It may be more of a private event, like what people's emotions and thoughts and all those kinds of things are. And it's still important stuff for us to be involved in and to try to help children learn these skills. It's a little less accessible to us. We can't measure it or see it as well, but we have ways of getting around that. And from a behavioral approach, the relational frame theory analysis of perspective taking is the most useful one that's available right now. And it involves derived relational abilities based on understanding of deictic frames. Whoa, does that sound confusing? I know. So I don't want to confuse any of you. But essentially what this means in simpler terms is it involves relating yourself or oneself to someone else in accordance with a second relation, like their emotions or beliefs. So it would be like, I think versus you think, or I feel versus you feel. And this ability to relate yourself with this other person in terms of the I versus the you, or they bring in the here versus there. So it would be something like, I am standing over here at this red door and you are standing over there at that yellow door. If I were you and you were me, where would I be standing and where would you be standing? And it starts to teach children how to be able to do that. That's called a reversed deictic frame relation. And it's a little bit complicated, obviously, but the good news is that there is a book chapter available. I don't have time during this presentation to go into it in depth and give you a full conceptual analysis of the behavioral approach to teaching perspective taking, but there is a book chapter available by McHugh and her colleagues, published in 2009 in a book edited by Rayfeld and Barnes-Holmes, and I've put up the reference here for you in case you are interested in that. And by the way, anyone who's attending this presentation today can get these slides if you would like them to be sent to you. Just email us at info@skillsglobal.com and we would be more than happy to send you those slides. We will also be able to put this presentation up on our YouTube channel shortly, hopefully in the next day or two. So please know that anything that you learned today in this presentation will still be available to you in the future. Now that said, I said I can't give you a really in-depth analysis or conceptual analysis, but I can give you the basics. And here are the basics. So in a behavioral approach, if we're teaching perspective taking or social cognition, whatever you want to call it, the steps involved would be to first teach multiple instances or exemplars of relating oneself to others. This is called deictic framing as in accordance to the RFT literature. But you would teach many different instances of relating yourself to another person. You would train this across multiple content areas. So when discussing it in terms of emotions, like, you know, my emotion versus your emotion in a certain situation or whatnot. You would also train this across different people, different settings, and with different stimuli. And then by doing that, you're basically doing multiple exemplar training, which is the best way to make sure that you actually teach the child a generalized class of behavior. This is not something where we're going to want to teach rote responses. We don't want to just teach the child to answer a couple questions rotely and they look like they're 100% correct, but they can't actually use that in a novel new situation with different kinds of content areas, you know, because we're not going to just be doing it with emotions. It's going to be intentions, it's going to be beliefs, it's going to be deception, and so on. So you keep training this across all these different people, settings, and stimuli. Then you're going to also test for generalization, which means look to see, does the child begin to do it on their own without direct teaching with novel people and novel settings and with novel stimuli? If you're not getting generalization, then the goal is to go back to the top, teach more instances of relating oneself to others, teach across more content areas, and train across more people and settings. And you literally just continue to repeat that loop until you get generalization. And your goal is to get generalization. If you do not get that, your job is not done. You never have taught a child something that is going to be useful to them if they don't have a generalized operant class of behavior following this, meaning they should be able to do it under any new conditions with any new people, settings, stimuli, everything. That means you've basically taught them to learn in their natural environment. Now, in 2006, Hagel and Rehfeldt demonstrated performance in deictic framing, and that this can improve with multiple exemplar training. So I've basically described this whole multiple exemplar training procedure when I said here's the basics and outlined them. They did a study with typically developing kids, not kids with autism, but it's looking promising at least that this is something that we definitely need to investigate further with individuals with autism. And it's, I would say, still at an early stage in terms of research, but there's a lot of places we can go with it and a lot of work still to be done, and it's an exciting new cutting edge area for sure in our field. I do want you to know that if you are a BCBA and you're very interested in this topic, I won't spend too much time on this, but there are several studies that have been published. These are the behavioral studies looking at these various kind of perspective-taking concepts in autism. McHugh and colleagues in 2011 published a study on teaching children with autism to identify situation-based emotions. And there's been a couple of studies, one by Charlotte Christie, another by LeBlanc and colleagues, teaching children with autism to be able to pass that Sally Ann false belief task. And another study by Feng and colleagues in 2008, teaching children both to recognize emotions and also to understand and interpret another's beliefs. Gould and colleagues in 2011 did a study on teaching children with autism to engage in visual perspective taking. Gina and colleagues in 2005 taught children with autism how to demonstrate sympathy type behavior. And then 3 studies have looked at teaching kids with autism empathetic behavior as well. So not a lot of research, but at least it's starting to happen and we need to get more. So this is a huge, wide open area for people in our field that are interested in doing research. We're doing a lot of research on this here at CARD, and we're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to publish with it. So anyone interested in that, please don't ever hesitate to reach out to me, because I love to collaborate on those projects. Okay, so now let's talk about this more practically speaking. What would a comprehensive cognition or perspective-taking curriculum need for individuals with autism? The slide that I'm showing you now has 13, I think, or so content areas all wrapped around this little image in the middle. The idea here is that we're going to be teaching children with autism to infer and predict other people's and their own private events or mental states, depending on how you want to talk about it. But essentially, you can see some of these topic areas. So, for example, we're going to teach these individuals with autism to identify their own, so they're going to learn metacognition too, so their own emotions, senses, desires, preferences, thoughts, beliefs, etc. Then they're also going to learn to identify this in other people. So this is the perspective taking or social cognitive section. And in learning this, there's a lot of ways we can teach children with autism these skills. First of all, they can learn to do this directly. So like we can teach them, if you want to know what someone's preferences are, you can ask them, what do you like? Or if you want to know how their emotions are, you can ask them, how do you feel? But they also need to learn to make inferences. So that's going to be really important. So we'll begin to teach them ways to do that. So for example, I talked earlier about the typically developing kids who could infer another's desires based on their facial expression to an object. That we would teach to a child with autism. We would also teach that child to identify how another person feels based on facial expressions. And we then begin to combine these concepts together. So for example, desire-based emotions. This is the idea that if Susie really wants the red popsicle, but you give her the blue one, how is she going to feel? So you see they're starting to make a prediction about how someone's going to feel, and based on that, they can make some certain social behavior decisions about how they're going to interact so that it will be a successful social interaction. So all these concepts kind of start basic, teaching about themselves, then teaching about others in direct ways, teaching them to infer in others, teaching them to predict in others. Then they begin to combine concepts together. Another example of how we would combine this is beliefs. We would teach the children to identify whether someone's holding a true or a false belief. Then we're going to combine that now with emotions to get belief-based emotions. So it's things like if Susie thinks she's getting a bicycle for her birthday, but she's not, and once she figures that out and realizes that's a false belief, how will Susie feel? And what can we do about that? We're also going to combine other concepts like sensory perspective taking. We would teach a child to identify what another person can see or hear and so on, and then that's going to get mixed into the knowing lesson. So this idea, I think I said earlier, does your mother know that she missed a phone call? No, she doesn't, because she couldn't hear her phone. She was outside. So they're going to discuss another person's sensory perspective taking to identify whether they hold knowledge in an area. Now, why is this important? Because when I'm engaging in a conversation now with someone, so I'm engaging in social behavior, if I am talking to them about something, I don't tell them something they already know. And so we can begin, if they have rule following, we can teach them rules about how when you're in a conversation, you don't tell them something they already know. And yesterday, you and your friend went and spent this day together, and it was great at the amusement park. And today, for whatever reason, you're telling your friend everything you did as if she wasn't there, but she was. She saw everything, she heard everything you heard, etc. So all of that becomes very important. When we're teaching preferences, we'll be able to teach them, you know, you can infer another's preferences by looking at what do they have a lot of, what do they do a lot of, or if they like peanut butter, you know, or chocolate chip, let's say ice cream, they might also like chocolate chip cookies, those kinds of things. We're also going to get into the concepts of teaching children to identify thoughts, and that thoughts are not tangible. You can't see them or touch them or feel them. They're different for different people. Various people have different opinions about things. That's okay. But also the concept that sometimes what someone is thinking and feeling doesn't actually match what they're saying and they're doing. And we have a lot of ways of teaching that. You can do it through cartoons sometimes. An example cartoon would be like of this little boy who's in a room with a little girl, and he is really afraid of spiders. There's a spider in the room. He's thinking he wants to run out screaming, and he's feeling really scared, but instead he says, "Oh wow, look at that cool spider." And he's doing that so he can look cool for that girl, and we're basically beginning to teach these children to read between the lines. We're also going to be teaching them very adaptive, deceptive behavior. They're going to learn to, you know, interpret when others are deceiving them and how to react appropriately. But how can they have adaptive, deceptive behavior? So keeping secrets and surprises and bluffing during games and using white lies so that they don't hurt others' feelings and those kinds of things. I'm going to move on now because I have a lot of videos I want to show you, so I don't want to spend too much more time on this. But really exciting, cutting-edge stuff. Again, areas that I hope will inspire many of you to get into. So we're going to look at this video now. This is of a therapist working with a little boy, and she's trying to teach him to infer her desires. She's doing that basically what I discussed earlier, which is having a reaction to two different objects and then asking him to give her the one he thinks she wants. And she cleverly uses salad dressing as the item she wants, because who really eats salad dressing on a spoon? And disgusting, I'm sure he doesn't like that, versus a lollipop, which he really, really likes. So it will be more difficult for him because he'll probably be more likely to say, yeah, you want the lollipop, because why? He likes the lollipop and he would want that. So let's take a look at the video.
Dressing. That's good. That's good. Okay. Ew. Can I have some? I'm hungry. Which one do I want? Watch. That's good. It's yucky. I'm hungry. Can I have some food? Good. That's what I want. What do I want? eat the dress.
All right, great. So let's move on now to the next video. I'm not going to spend much time discussing it because I already described what you were going to see in that video. You get the idea, hopefully. This next video that we're going to watch is trying to break through to this little boy to help him to understand another person's, I guess you could say, visual perspective. So it's kind of like visual perspective taking, and it kind of has to do with knowing as well, and how this therapist doesn't really know certain things because she doesn't have a visual perspective, and it's done through a blindfold task. So what's going to happen is she's going to be blindfolded, and he's going to have to give her instructions for how to get from one end of the room to the other end of the room, but her vision is blocked, so now it's going to be really important for him to take her perspective and to give her very specific instructions that are possible to follow. And it's very interesting to watch this video and see how kind of the light comes on for him as this goes on, and he gets better at it even within this one trial here. So let's take a look at this video.
So I need you to tell me how to get from here to the chair. I want you to tell me how to get over there and sit in the chair. Okay?
Just jump. Okay.
Wait. Now here's the trick.
Oh no. I know what's gonna happen.
Can I see where I'm going?
No.
So
So I tried.
okay, and I spin around. So I have no idea.
I was spinning around you really fast.
Oh man. Okay, I'm totally confused now. And I don't want to crash. I don't want to step on anything. So
Go.
do I know where to go?
Okay, go that way.
Let's see.
Go north.
That's not gonna work. All right, I want to switch places with you for a second.
Okay, switch places.
Now, remember when we were playing the Lego game
Yeah.
and you were telling me like, put this one there?
Yeah.
What was the problem with that?
If they put this one, you didn't know which one is which.
Right. So, I want you to put the blindfold on. Okay, can you see?
And why is it so dark?
Can you see?
No.
Okay. Spin it, spin it. Stop. Go that way. Oh, no, I meant that way. Does that tell you which way to go?
No.
Okay, why not? Can you see where I'm pointing?
No.
Okay. So if I say go that way. No. Go that way. Tell me if I'm giving you a bad instruction.
That's a bad instruction. I cannot see where I'm going.
Okay. So now I want you to try this again.
Well, that thing was falling off so I can see.
Oh, so that makes it easier. All right. I can't see.
Why just spin it really fast?
Oh, oh. Whoa. That's not funny.
Wow. Fast spinner.
All right. I don't know.
Okay. Go to the Nintendo. Come on, go this way. Yeah, this
Don't
way.
push me. No. I need you to tell me.
Go. Jump. Go forward.
Okay.
Go sideways.
Oh, wait. I just bumped something. Am I going to crash?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
So
go
stop.
this way.
Wait, so stop? You told me go
Stop.
forward. Stop. Okay.
Go this way. Go east.
I don't know which way east is because I can't see which way
Okay.
I'm facing. So
Go.
maybe right or left?
Go left.
Okay.
Okay. Go moving. Okay, stop. jump over it.
Oh, I don't want to jump because I might crash. So can you tell me a different way where I don't have to jump over?
Okay. Go left. Keep going. Okay, stop. Go this way. Go forward.
Good, William.
Go west. Okay, go right. Go right.
Oh, I'm bumping into something.
Okay.
You need to tell
Stop.
me to stop.
Okay, go. Okay, go. Okay, go forward. And keep going. Stop. Okay, go left.
Wow, you're telling me some good directions. Why aren't you saying go this way?
Stop. Go.
Wait, why aren't you saying go this way?
Because you might not understand.
Yeah.
Feel like you're blind.
Yeah.
You have a white face. You have a white face.
Yeah.
And you're sick. Okay. Okay, go that. Okay, you go. Go left. Go left.
Left? But I'm bumping into something.
Okay, go back. Go back a little bit. Then go left. Then
Oh.
and keep going left.
Okay.
Then okay, stop. Go right a little bit. And go forward. Stop.
Oh, you can't move things.
Okay, go left a little bit. I mean, go right. Go forward. Now sit on a chair. Turn around and sit on a chair. No. All right. Turn around. Wait. Okay. Keep going. Keep turning around. Okay. Now sit.
Oh my gosh, you did it! Awesome! Thanks! Awesome!
All right, great. I love that video. Let's move on and watch some more fun videos here. Here we go. Okay, so our next video is going to be showing an example of a therapist working with the same child, I think, and teaching him how to understand false beliefs. So she's going to use, I believe, a deceptive container task where she's going to present a container that, typically speaking, one would think would have a certain object in it because it would be kind of like if I presented to you a cereal box, you would think cereal would be in it, right? That would be the belief you would hold. But what if I took the cereal out and instead I put something else in? I could trick you essentially. Your belief then is now false. You think it has cereal, but it doesn't. It has something else. So she's beginning to teach this whole concept of how people can have these false beliefs using this deceptive container task. So let's take a look at this next video here.
Hey, I thought maybe we could play this. This looked so cool.
Okay. It's a real mess.
What's in here?
A dead guy.
A dead guy?
You'll see.
Okay, I can't wait to see.
Come on, open. You have to read the hieroglyphs. But not really get. Oh. Underwear!
Oh my gosh! There wasn't a dead guy in here.
It was my underwear.
That's so funny. Hey, before we opened it, what did you think was in there?
I'm a dead guy.
Why did you think there was a dead guy in there?
So I can play with it.
Yeah, but why did you think it was a dead guy?
Because it's always in there.
Oh, there's always a dead guy in there.
But the underwear, I did underwear.
Did you know there were going to be underwear in there?
No.
No, why
Who
not?
did that?
I don't know. Who do you think?
You? Me? Why would you think that? Did you?
No, I didn't do it.
Well, who did it? You did it.
I did it.
To tease me.
I tricked you.
Oh.
Is that your...
Mine just said 6-year-old underwear.
Hey, is that your sister playing down the hall?
Yeah.
What's your sister's name?
Well, I had 2 sisters.
Oh, okay.
Emily and Hannah. Emily's the small
Wait, what?
one. Emily's the big one. Hannah's the small one.
Okay. Are you talking to my shoulder?
Oh.
Oh. If we went to show this box to Emily, what would she think was in it?
A mummy.
She would think there was a mummy in
That's right.
there. Well, we probably should go show her underwear, huh? But if we did, if we just went and showed her this box, what would she think is in it?
The dead guy.
She would think it was a dead guy, huh? She wouldn't think, oh, that's a box of underwear.
All right, great. So now let's move on to our next video. This is a video looking at beginning to teach a child on the spectrum to identify another's preferences. This is a very important skill because we're going to use this information about others' preferences for many different things. Like, let's say you're giving someone a birthday present or you're planning a birthday party for them. Instead of getting your favorite things, your favorite colors, your favorite cake flavors and those types of things, you look at the preferences of those people in buying them a present or planning for them. If you're doing a play date with a child, you might think ahead as to who's coming over and what do they really like to do and want to set up certain fun activities or certain foods that we're going to have together or whatever. So it's an extremely important area, and we're going to see how the therapist begins to start to break the ice here with this child in terms of helping them to begin to think about others' preferences. Let's take a look.
What's your favorite food?
Oh, my favorite food is probably tacos. What's your favorite food?
A hamburger
You like hamburgers?
with cheese.
Cheese. Cool.
What do you like to watch?
On TV?
Yeah.
I like to watch, let's see, what do I like to watch? Let's see. I like to watch Seinfeld.
I like to watch the news.
You do?
Yeah, because I want to hear what's happening today.
Okay.
What's your favorite game?
My favorite game is Clue. Have you ever played that game?
Yes.
Do you like it?
It's where you gotta find the weapon,
Mm-hmm.
the person, and which one?
And what room?
Yeah, what room? And if you solve it, you win the game.
Yep, I love
But
that
if you
game.
don't solve it, you gotta go to another room and solve it.
What's your favorite game?
My favorite game is Hangman.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
Earlier today when I was at the office, I saw Lisa there, and she told me that tonight, after she gets off work, she's going to go get some dinner, and then she's going to go back to her house to hang out with one of her friends, and they're going to maybe play games, maybe watch some movies, do some stuff like that. So, do you know what they might go get for dinner tonight?
No, I don't know.
How come you don't know?
I don't know. I was not there.
Okay, that's right, you weren't there. If you had to guess, what do you think?
I think some orange chicken and some rice.
Okay, let's see your pencil here. How come you think that?
Because actually I never know.
What?
Actually I never know. I'm just guessing it.
Okay. Well, think about how maybe you might be able to know what she might get.
Ask her.
Okay. What would you ask her, though?
What kind of food would you get?
Okay. Have you talked to her about food before? You haven't?
So let's talk.
But today you didn't talk to her at all about food?
Oh yes I did.
What? What did you talk about?
I asked a question, what kind of favorite food?
Okay. So if she's going to go out to dinner tonight, what might she get if you had to guess?
Taquito.
Taquitos? Why didn't you ask her? Just ask her if she'd get
What's your
Cheetos.
favorite food?
My favorite food is tacos.
Oh, tacos.
Tacos. Did you forget?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what do you think that she would do after that when she got back to her house?
She would eat it all up.
Okay. And then what might they do tonight?
They might watch the news
How come they would watch the news?
because they want to see what happened.
Hey, I'm over here.
Want to see what happened?
Did she tell you that she likes to see the news?
No. She likes to see. I can't remember what happened.
Think about
What's your favorite TV show?
Seinfeld.
Seinfeld.
it. Okay. And what about if she was going to play a game? What about if they were going to play a game? Do you know what they would play?
Clue.
All right.
All right, let's move on. We only have a couple minutes left, and I want to be able to answer your questions, but I also want to answer this question, which is, okay, so now what do we do? This is all probably pretty interesting to many of you, and I know in 1 hour there's no way that you're going to walk away from here being able to go implement certain things or know exactly how to program for or teach children with autism these deficit areas. That is probably something we could get into in future webinars more specifically, but I do want you to know that there are tools available to assist in teaching the repertoires that are needed to fill the social gap that we've discussed today. And this first tool is one developed by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and it's called CARD Learning. And this is a tool for that provides training in how to implement ABA-based techniques for teaching skills in children with autism. It's an online course, essentially, and it's available to anyone to go ahead and take a look at. It involves essentially different lessons with different videos that one watches, and as they complete the videos, they can take quizzes and take a final exam. And this whole entire training is essentially to get a person ready to be able to go out and do ABA-based techniques with individuals with autism. And then the second tool that I want to talk to you about is skills. This is the idea that after someone's done CARD learning, they've learned how to implement ABA techniques, they still don't necessarily know exactly what a child needs. So you might be thinking, wow, these are a lot of great areas, I know it's important, but how do I know exactly which ones the individual child that I'm working with needs to work on? And what lessons could I implement to actually take care of those deficits? I certainly didn't go into very many lesson activities here today in this presentation, so you're going to be feeling like you're lacking in that. But Skills essentially is a program that provides comprehensive assessment, and it does it across 8 areas, one of which is, or 2 of which are social skills and cognition. And then it figures out what the child needs to learn, and it provides lesson plans for those particular things. So you can figure out what are the social cognitive deficits in the individual children that you're working with or your individual child based on the skills assessment, and then identify and find lessons to implement, and it'll give you step-by-step what to do. The skills curriculum does cover 8 areas, and you'll see it includes social skills and it includes cognition. That was the topic area of today's presentation. This skills program, though, also offers curricula and 6 other content areas that you'll notice here. I want to thank you for attending the webinar.